Is this a great game or what? With the Hall of Famer Tim Kirkchin, I'm his son Jeff Kirkchin, and Dad, what a day it's already been for you. Next to no sleep, 2 flights across the country into another country, and you are back in Toronto, game 6 tonight. Where are you right now? Like physically right now?
Well, I'm in my cousin Craig Barnes's basement in Newmarket, Ontario, which is about an hour outside of Toronto. This is where Craig, my cousin, my other cousins, Joanne and Susan, grew up. We used to visit here a lot as a kid. And now I come back as a 68-year-old man doing a podcast with Jeffrey in the basement. It is great. And you're right. It was a difficult travel day, Jeff. Long flight to Detroit. Then we took a prop plane to a small plane to Toronto. We were picking people up at their houses. It was unbelievable, but we made it. We made it safely. Everything's okay. And tonight, Jeff, we have a game 6, which can't get any better than that, right? You remember, Jeff, there's been so many, we always say there's nothing like a game 7, but we've had some unbelievable game 6s just in the time that I've been covering. The Bill Buckner game was game 6. The Kirby Puckett game in 91 was game 6. The David Freese 2011 game 6. And of course, Joe Carter hit the home run to win the 1993 World Series. That was hit in game 6. So we have a lot to look forward to with the Dodgers and the Blue Jays in game 6.
Yeah, and it's back in Toronto. And Dad, this is crazy. An 18-inning game 3. And remember, we talked about this on the podcast that I went to the other 18-inning game in Los Angeles at Dodger Stadium back in 2018.
Right.
I was at that game, and then they did it again. I just couldn't believe it, Dad. It was so cool.
So, Jeff, if you remember, that game ended in 2018 when Max Muncy hit a walk-off home run. So I talked to Max Muncy the other day, and I said, do you think my head would have exploded if you had hit the 18th inning home run for the second time in baseball history? A World Series game goes 18 and you hit the walk-off home run in each one. And he looked at me and he goes, well, if Freddie hadn't hit it, I would have hit it. Freddie Freeman. And he said it was the same thing. And I never even bothered to check this. First baseman, 3-2 pitch leading off the inning. That's how they won that game. One of the most incredible games that I have ever seen. And I mean, it's been a great series so far, but game 3 will always just be known as game 3 in LA because everyone will remember it because it was that remarkable.
Well, get this, Dad. I was going to save it for the Quirkins, but I just have to say, do you know, and it's okay if you don't, who sang the national anthem at game 3?
Brad Paisley. You've already stolen one of my Quirkins, Brad Paisley.
You had this?
I had this. He sang.
Dad, if I don't have this as the country music host, I have nothing.
Right.
Let me take it. I need it. I need it more than anything.
No, Jeff. I was paying attention, okay? Brad Paisley sang the national anthem at the 18-inning game in 2018 and then again in 2025. That was pretty good. Sorry to steal you, Jeff. I knew this one for once. I don't know who Brad Paisley is, but I know that he sang the 2 songs.
Well, get this, Dad. He actually has sang the national anthem 4 times at 4 World Series games. All 4 of them went to extra innings.
Yes, I saw.
Including the 2 18-inning games. So just like the crazy connection, if Brad Paisley's singing the national anthem, you better be ready for some free baseball because it is happening.
Right. And also, Jeff, not to be self-serving, if you're going to play 18 innings in the postseason, I'm going to be there. We've had 5 18-inning games in the history of the postseason. I have covered 4 of them. How about that?
That is impressive, Dad.
Right.
Now, wait, before we get into a little bit more, what did you just take a sip of?
That is I'm in Canada. They don't have a Diet Mountain Dew here. So Uncle Craig got me the sugar-free Mountain Dew. So it's the replacement for Diet Mountain Dew, and I like it, but it's not as good as Diet Mountain Dew. because they
So
don't
he
have
went
Diet
out-
Mountain Dew in the whole city of Toronto. Believe me, I checked.
I know, and this has been a whole thing. You packed a Diet Mountain Dew in your check bag and then snuck it out in the concourse after landing in order to get it because, Dad, I'm reading Diet Mountain Dew was replaced by Mountain Dew Zero Sugar, so it's available in most stores.
Right.
So it was discontinued completely.
Right.
And Uncle Craig took the time to go get that for you. How great of a cousin is he?
Right. And how great of a teammate is Eduardo, because he smuggled 6 Diet Mountain Dews into Toronto on the last trip. And because he knows there's no Diet Mountain Dew here, he brought them from Miami, put them in his suitcase, and delivered them to me. How about that? And I didn't
He's
drink
the
them all
best
because
guy.
I have 3 left when I get to the hotel because Eduardo delivered that. And speaking of Eduardo, Jeff, all the traveling with Eduardo, he's so funny. He just runs into things all the time. So yesterday he told us that we were at game 5 at Dodger Stadium, and everybody knows Eduardo, but he said someone mistook him for a hot dog vendor. At the game.
No.
Yes, and I still don't know all the details, but the guy looked at Eduardo and said, we're going to need some hot dogs. Can you get us some hot dogs? Eduardo had to say, I'm not a hot dog vendor. Only he.
I'm Eduardo Perez, son of a Hall of Famer
Right.
and former major leaguer and current baseball broadcaster.
Right. He should not be the one mistaken for a hot dog vendor. And speaking of Eduardo, Jeff, this was priceless. After game 5, we're walking to the elevator at Dodger Stadium, and it's really late, and out of a door comes Sandy Koufax. And so now we're walking with Sandy Koufax. Now, I've told you, Jeff, I've interviewed Sandy Koufax multiple times. I hate to put it this way, but he knows who I am. And of course, he knows who Eduardo is because Eduardo played, and Eduardo is Tony's son. And Sandy Koufax faced Tony Perez, more than a few times. So now we're walking to the elevator, and it's a very long elevator wait. So I'm standing there, and I say to Sandy, the last time I had a good chat with you was at the Hall of Fame, and we talked about playing basketball. You were a great basketball player at Cincinnati. So now we're talking about basketball again, and then we get in the elevator, and Sandy has the biggest hands, legendarily big hands. And we're talking hoops, and he's having the greatest time. And he's showing us his hands because we asked him to. And then Carl Ravitch, who has the smallest hands of any adult male I've ever seen in my life, puts his hand up against Sandy Koufax's hand. And there we are with a handoff in the elevator at Dodger Stadium after game 5. It was just great. So then I look at Sandy and I say, Ravi's got a size 7.5 shoe, which is the same size that I wear. And Eduardo wears a 15. And Sandy Koufax looks at me and goes, I wear a 15 also. I had no idea.
Wow.
So he's got the longest arms of any pitcher I've ever seen. He's got enormous hands, and he wears a size 15 shoe, and he could dunk it easily at the University of Cincinnati. So isn't that great, Jeff? We're just hanging out, me, Ravi, and Eddie go to the elevator to go home after the game, and who walks out but Sandy Koufax? And we have a chuckle of all chuckles with him. It was hilarious.
That's why you have to be there. These stories. Eduardo getting mistaken for a hot dog man and Sandy Koufax hit the elevator button.
Right.
That's where it's at.
Right. There's no telling who you're going to run into, especially at a World Series game at Dodger Stadium. And for the last, Jeff, it's also Halloween. I'm not sure we mentioned that. And
Happy Halloween, everybody.
Halloween, Jeff. I'm going to miss Halloween at home with the grandchildren, but hey, it's game 6 of the World Series. That's more important. Nothing's more important than game 6 and 7 of the World Series. I don't know if we're going 7, but I'll tell you what, it has been a fascinating series, a little imperfect, but the game 3 was just incredible. And some of the storylines we've seen have been absolutely amazing.
Incredible. Dad, do you have a costume you're going to wear to the game tonight?
I am not wearing a costume, no. And you remember the costume that you wore? Give me 2 baseball-related costumes that you wore for Halloween when you were a kid. Because I remember.
Well, I was you.
You were
one
me
year.
one time with carrying an ESPN mic flag.
Yeah,
Dressed in a
and
black
I wore a suit.
and you were like
I
7.
wore a suit. Yeah, and next to me, Tommy Karadimas was Scream, and I was Tim Kirkshin, ESPN.
Right.
And one year I was Rafael Palmeiro.
Right. We'll leave that one alone. But didn't a lot of people at Halloween that night when you were dressed as me said, "Who are you supposed to be?"
Oh,
Is that right?
Yeah, this was pre-Tim Kirkshin impression. This was before social media. So, like, I mean, if you caught my dad, that's when they still had to bring out the TV truck and park it in our driveway if you had to be on television for the night.
Right.
So, I mean, it was still early in your ESPN career. So it would be a little bit different if Carson went to school dressed as you now. I think he could pull that off. Social media would make that a hit. But back in the day, it was different.
Right. All right, the takeaways from this week, Jeff, there are 100 of them, but I'm going to be quick with these because we're looking ahead to Game 6, which is going to be so good because Yoshi Yamamoto's pitching in Game 6 against Kevin Gossman. This could be a pitching duel of the ages. Both those guys are so good. And Yamamoto, of course, has 2 consecutive complete games in the postseason. Last guy to do 3 in the same postseason was Curt Schilling in 2001, but nobody can pitch better than Trey Yesavage did in Game 5. Did you watch, Jeff? Did you watch what that guy did?
He is a savage. Unbelievably great.
Jeff, remember, he's the guy that manager John Schneider didn't even see in spring training because he was so not in the plans. He was over in a backfield someday. John Schneider never even saw him. And then in Game 5, he pitched the biggest game the Blue Jays have had, certainly since 1993. He became the first pitcher ever, Jeff, not just rookie pitcher, first pitcher ever in World Series history to strike out 12 without walking somebody in a World Series game. It's just incredible. And those 12 strikeouts are the most ever by a rookie in a World Series game. And speaking of Sandy Koufax, only 2 pitchers have ever finished 5 innings in a World Series game with at least 10 strikeouts. Sandy Koufax and Trey Yesavage. It was incredible. And that combination of 95-mile-an-hour fastball, slider from hell, and one of the great split fingers you'll ever see. 22-year-old kid, Jeff. Absolutely poise and presence that cannot be explained for a kid that age.
The maturity, the energy on the mound, and now headed back to Toronto. This is just such an exciting. The World Series is the best, but it is sad because baseball is almost over.
I know.
Dad. This is like, there's a little bit of depression here,
right? But Jeff, the reason baseball is so great is the story of Will Klein, who pitched 4 innings for the Dodgers, 4 scoreless innings to end Game 3, and he got the victory. Now, keep in mind, Will Klein had pitched 22 innings in his career in the major leagues, bounced all over the place. He wasn't on any of the first 3 rosters, wild card, LDS, LCS, and there was no intention of putting him on the World Series roster either. So he was in Arizona at what they call they call this the get hot camp, okay? And that means you go there to stay in shape just in case some miracle comes up and we're going to need you to pitch in the next round. So he's there. They bring him into Dodger Stadium with no intention of activating him. He threw this simulated game to, some of the backups, and he threw a bunch of strikes. And they said, all right, you're going to come with us to Toronto. And that didn't mean he was going to be activated. He just said, all right, I'll go with you. He thought he was like a taxi squad guy just in case somebody got hurt. And then at the last minute, they said, all right, you're active. And then he pitches in the game. And he's the 10th pitcher in the game, Jeff. So that's the most pitchers that any team has ever used in a World Series game ever. 10. And they needed all 10 of them to win it. And he told us that he looked around and he said, there's nobody left. Like, I've looked down the bullpen. I'm the only one left in here. And unless we're going to bring a starter like Yamamoto back, and Yamamoto would have come back, he said, I have to finish this job. And he did. So he was one of the heroes of an epic Game 3. He had never thrown more than 36 pitches in any major league game in his career, and he threw 72, exactly twice
Double.
as many. And we joked with him. The game took so long. He's got a big bushy beard. We joked with him. Did you have that beard when the game started? Because that's how long the game lasted. It was 6 hours and 39 minutes and 609 pitches. It was just unbelievable. And Sandy Koufax, whose name has come up now for the 5th time in the podcast, went to congratulate Will Klein after the game. And I said to Will, like, what was that like? And he said, I didn't even know what to say. I couldn't even form any words because Sandy Koufax came up to me and congratulated me on winning a World Series game. How about that, Jeff? That would be like Brad Paisley coming up to you and saying, hey, you can really sing, right?
Yeah, but I'm not even a country singer yet. So,
well, it's still pretty amazing. So that's the story.
Dad, it's by far not only getting to pitch in the World Series, but then getting told by one of the greats, you did a great job.
Right.
Oh, chills.
Pretty good.
So many chills.
All right, a couple other things. The Blue Jays have a 3-2 lead going into Game 6, and they deserve it because they've outplayed the Dodgers so far. And we've been talking about this, Jeff, for a month now. The Blue Jays put the ball in play better than any team in the major leagues. They hit 265 as a team. We don't care about batting average anymore. I do. And the tough at-bats they take, every at-bat's a fist fight. They jump that first pitch and put it in play. They are hitting 284 as a team in the postseason, Jeff. Pretty darn good against elite pitching. The rest of the teams combined are hitting 217. 284 to 217. That's why they're in the World Series, and that's why they're leading the Dodgers, who have scored 4 runs in their last 29 innings. And they have a serious problem putting the ball in play, making contact. They struck out 15 times in Game 5. This is where the Blue Jays deserve to be ahead right now. But with Yamamoto going in Game 6, as dominant as he's been, who knows? So Addison Barger, I told you last week that Ernie Clement has become my new favorite player. And we're not rooting for anyone, Jeff. I'm just saying he has a great personality. He's funny. He bought a baseball glove on eBay. We've been over all that. So Addison Barger, right fielder / third baseman for the Blue Jays. I'm at the batting cage with him the other day, and he's hitting just cannon shots all over the field during batting practice. And he's unbelievably strong. And he swings the bat harder than anyone in the major leagues today. So he says to me, I said, I don't know how it came up, but he goes, I have more power right-handed than I do left-handed. And he said, next year, I'm going to try to become a switch hitter. Which, Jeff, he established himself this year as a pretty good major league player, and then drops that one. Oh, next year, I'm going to see if they're going to let me switch hit. I don't think they're going to allow him to do it, but that's how the game works. It's just, and he's just got that kind of free spirit, athletic style, and great personality that who knows? I wouldn't put anything past Addison Barger at this point.
And you were just saying in the last episode,
right.
if it's so, if being a switch hitter is so difficult, you have to be such a good hitter. You would think they'd be hitting a little bit of a higher average.
Then Frankie Frisch is all-time
Frisch?
316, yep. Right? So that's great. And last thing, Jeff, I get a kick out of these little things at the World Series. Alex Call, who played left field in Game 5 for the Dodgers, replacing Andy Pages in the outfield because he struggled so badly. So Alex Call was with the Nationals on July the 31st, a team not going anywhere this year, and suddenly he gets traded to the Dodgers. And he was so much fun to talk to on the set the other day, and we were joking to him about his name, Alex Call, and he says, ever since I was in elementary school, people have had a lot of fun with my name. Like he got a game-winning hit somewhere, and the headline in the paper the next day was, he answered the call. He said things like this. It's so dumb. He says it comes up all the time. And then he says, like, another headliner, people come up to him and go, you make the call, So he really got a charge out of that. Jeff, you need to help me with something here. He is a virtual reality guy. Like, he walks around with these goggles on, with these. I've seen him do it. I know what it is in baseball, because when you look at this, you can look at the starting pitcher who you're facing that night. And he routinely walks around with this VR, they call it, on his head, and he's watching film of the pitcher he's going to be facing that night. Are you aware of how this works?
Dad, you've asked me in the span of this season about AI, about VR. What other abbreviations have you asked me about this year?
Right. I'm not.
This is a lot for me to try to explain, but in short, because I can't even get you to watch a Netflix show on your phone. So this is going to be hard for me to get there. But basically, there's now ability to film in virtual reality. You put on a headset and it's like a 360 camera, and some of it uses your phone. You lock your phone in a headset and boom, or the headset itself is its own VR camera or VR screen, and you can look around because it's a 360 camera. It's all the time recording 360 degrees, and so you can act like you're facing that pitcher in this case.
Right.
And the technology is unbelievable, but I'm never going to let you get near it because it would be too hard for you to figure it out. And it's even too hard for me, and I'm 32.
Right. But I do understand the VR in baseball, that these guys are constantly watching video of pitchers and hitters and everything else. And it's a really important thing. Alex Call apparently does it more than most people do. He's kind of addicted to it, but it helps him. He's got great plate discipline. And now he started Game 5 in the World Series. Whatever works, right?
All right, well, let me hit you with a couple of abbreviations. You tell me what they mean, okay?
All right.
VR.
Virtual reality. I just said that.
Good,
right.
good. AI.
Allen Iverson.
Okay. Not wrong.
Right.
I'll give you a point.
Right.
All right, next one.
Right.
LOL.
Laugh out loud.
Good. BRB.
Pass. Can I buy a vowel?
That's be right back.
Be right back. Okay.
SMH.
I don't know.
That's shaking my head, which is what I'm doing most of the time when I try to
Shaking my head? That's what that means?
Yeah, shaking my head.
I'm way too old for this little exercise here. I'm sorry. I do anagrams for a living. I can't mess with these abbreviations that I don't even know what they mean. Shaking my head.
Well, coming up next here on Is This a Great Game or What? We're going to do the Quirkins. You've got a special Halloween Team Tim and so much more. It's coming up next. All right, Dad, jumping into the Quirkins. What do you got?
Well, Game 3 of the World Series was one gigantic Quirkin, Jeff. I mean, there's no way around this. There was so much ground to cover, so many bizarre things happened, but we'll just use the low-hanging fruit here. Shohei Ohtani batted 9 times, so 9 plate appearances, and he reached base all 9. So no one in World Series history had ever reached base 7 out of 7 times. He went 9 out of 9. He's the 4th player ever to reach 9 times in a major league game. That's not just playoffs, World Series. Never happened in the postseason, but it happened in the regular season. You know, you play 20 innings, guys get on. He was intentionally walked, Jeff, 4 times. That's a major league record. 3 of them, Jeff, were with nobody on base. Okay, so it had only happened 1 time in the history of the postseason, Albert Pujols 2011, that anybody was walked intentionally with no one on base. Ohtani was walked intentionally 3 times with nobody on base, including twice in a 3-inning span. So we went from 1903 to 1925, and it had happened 1 time. Then it happened to the same guy 3 times in one game. It was just unbelievable. And that's how great Shohei Ohtani is. But Jeff, just to show you how beautiful the sport is, you know, he's gone 0 for 7 since then. Now look, it's baseball. Getting hit is really hard to do no matter who you are. But you just think, all right, he reached base 9 straight times. He's going to tear it up for the rest of the World Series. And they pitched him beautifully.
Dad, I got to say, 9 reach base safely. It just solidifies again. He is the GOAT. What does the GOAT stand for?
The greatest of all time. I know that, Jeff.
Okay.
And Will
Good.
Klein was wearing a shirt when we interviewed him on for Baseball Tonight, and it's an Ohtani shirt, and there's just a picture of a goat in the middle. And it doesn't say goat. You just understand what it means. There's a goat, and that's who Ohtani is, the greatest of all time.
I'm so proud of you picking up the context clues, Pop.
Right.
You're doing great.
All right. Now, how great is this, Jeff? So in that famous Game 3, Brendan Little got the loss for the Blue Jays. Now, I don't know anything about other languages. As you know, I can speak a little bit of French. I'm terrible at it. Biggest mistake of my life is not taking Spanish in high school and college.
Well, might come in handy in Canada.
Yeah. Well, I'm terrible at French now. But the point is, Rachel Hamlet sent a note to us, to our Great Game or What email. And Rachel Hamlet, who I don't even know who she is, of course, but she says, I'm sure you know this. And she meant it in a very complimentary way. But she said, Klein, the winning pitcher, the word Klein in German means small. So the winning pitcher in German's name is small, and the losing pitcher was little. So I figured, who better to report something like this than me, who we've been clear, I'm small and I'm little, you know? Like Alejandro Kirk is short, but he's not little, right? Because he weighs 245 pounds. He's short, but he's not little. There's a difference.
Which of our listeners sent that in?
I think it's pronounced Rachel Hamlet.
The lady doth protest too much, methinks.
Pretty
to
good,
me?
Jeff. Pretty good.
Or not to be?
All right. Last thing, Jeff. Andres Jimenez drew an intentional walk out of the number 9 spot in that Game 3.
Wow.
He's been a dangerous hitter in this postseason. So our pal Bill Chuck, who does the Billy Ball thing that people need to read and subscribe, he's really good at this stuff. He wrote, I didn't even check it, but he said Sam Haggerty was the only number 9 hitter this year to draw an intentional walk. And that was in one of the extra inning games. It was in the 10th inning of what we, a ghost runner game where, sometimes you got to walk somebody intentionally, not because he's too good to pitch to, but you got to set up a double play or something. So it only happened one time during the regular season, Bill Chuck said, and then it happened in the World Series. And my fourth question was about Brad Paisley, and you stole it from me, Jeff. That's how I look at that.
I said before we hit record, I said, I've got something for you, Dad, and you don't have it. And you had it.
Right.
So
Sorry
I'm pretty disappointed about that. All right. Well, on this date in baseball history, happy Halloween, everybody. What you got?
Right. So I'm not even going to go into baseball here. I'm going to start off with just a personal story about Halloween on 2001. It was in New York, of course. It was the Diamondbacks and the Yankees. And Steve Rushin, who's been a guest of ours, the smartest and funniest person I think I've ever met in my life, he invites me to go to the Reebok Club. I'm sure I told you this, Jeff, to play, just shoot some hoops as we get ready for whatever it was, Game 3 of the World Series. So I go up there, we're shooting around, and we're just about ready to leave. And in come these two guys and say, you guys want to play 2-on-2? And one of them was Adam Sandler. So now we're in a 2-on-2 game with Adam Sandler. Now, the guy he was playing with is the worst player I've ever seen in my life. Steve Rushin is 6'5", and he can shoot it. So it was Steve and I against Adam and the worst player I've ever seen. So needless to say, we won 8 games in a row. We would have won 8 million games in a row if we had continued to play, because that's how. But Adam Sandler was better than I thought. He was more competitive than I thought. But I remember going home, going to the ballpark, and I called home and I told you and Kelly, guess what happened to Dad today? And you guys jokingly said, what, did you get to interview Derek Jeter again or something like that? I said, I played 2-on-2 with Happy Gilmore. And you guys thought that was the greatest thing ever. You remember that?
Yeah, and then after he lost, didn't he say, why don't you go home to your mother? Not bad, right?
That was pretty,
I've never done that one before.
That was pretty good. Now, what movie is that from? Is that Billy Madison? Is that
I think it's Happy Gilmore.
Right. All right.
I think that one is Happy Gilmore. Usually, Dad, I'm only good at one celebrity impression, may he rest in peace, which is Gilbert Gottfried,
right.
who voiced a lot of
like
things.
him. Right. Yeah.
Because we both sound like it. We both sound like him. We get a little excited.
Right. So after playing hoops with Happy Gilmore, I went to the compound, which ESPN had, because we're covering the game, of course. And people said, "What'd you do today?" And I said, "Well, I played basketball with Adam Sandler." And all the young people there were absolutely dazzled that I had met Adam Sandler and played. And then he came to the compound later that day and went on SportsCenter with us that night. So it was a really cool day. On this date in 2001, I played 2-on-2 with Billy Madison. Pretty cool.
Pretty neat. All right, Dad. Well, you've got a Team Tim celebrating Halloween, don't you?
Yes. Now, this was my idea, but I am also going to credit Todd Addington, very clever and loyal listener to the podcast. He had already come up with an all Halloween team. So there are a couple of things that I stole from him. I acknowledge he had better position players than I did, but I'm going to give you my all Halloween team. And again, Jeff, lots of stretches here. I looked for a guy named Trick. It wasn't easy to find, and needless to say, I didn't find him. But our catcher is Matt Batts. You might see a bat on Halloween. First baseman, love to see this Treat McSorley. So I couldn't find a Trick, but Treat McSorley played 130 years ago, first baseman, third baseman, so he's there. Todd helped. I had a second baseman. Todd had a better one. Jimmy Bloodwork is the second baseman on the all-Halloween team.
That's a really good one.
Right. There are a bunch of guys named Graves, including Danny Graves, but I couldn't use him as a pitcher because I needed a third baseman. So Joe Graves is our third baseman.
Great.
Alvin Dark is our shortstop. Todd agreed. Todd also had him. He also had, like I did, Candy Maldonado as one of the outfielders. I had Wally Moon walking around in the dark, the moon, all that. You never know. And Todd gave me this one, Bones Eli. Never heard of him in my life. Bones Eli is our third outfielder. And all the pitchers are mine, Jeff. And Todd did a great job. Thank you so much for helping. But Boo Ferris is one of our pitchers.
Great.
Never heard of this guy, but Luverne Fear, because you're always afraid on Halloween, right? Laverne Fear.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Again, one of my favorites, Michael Myers, is our last guy.
Dad, that's so perfect.
Do you get it? You get it, right?
It's excellent. I looked up Bones Eli or Bones Ely, or however you pronounce it, 6'1", 155 pounds listed on Baseball Reference.
Well, that's obviously why they call him Bones. All right, I'm going to get
he played during the Great Depression, so everybody was hungry at the time. I can totally understand.
Hang on one second.
Dad's going to get the 3 cards that he grabbed out of the basement bathroom of his home, but he's been on the road, so I guess he just stuffed a bunch of cards in his suitcase. Let's see. Oh, Dad, Dad, I was just kind of summarizing what you were doing. Were you going to your bag to get 3 cards in the bathroom?
Yeah, I had them in my bag, so now I've got, since people seem to enjoy this, I know I enjoy just reaching in and grabbing some baseball cards and seeing if I remember these people or if I have a story about them at all. So number 1, Jeff, for 3 cards in the bathroom is Gary Matthews. Now, he was a really good left fielder for the Giants when he came up. He could fly. He ended up playing for the Phillies and the Cubs. He earned the nickname the Sarge because he was so in charge of the team. And this is a joke. This happened, Jeff, but this is a joke, okay? I don't want anyone taking this seriously, even though it actually happened. I spoke with Gary Matthews at Williamsport in an off season, like a January hot stove. Let's start getting ready. And they had a big poster of me signed, and Gary Matthews. There was a big poster of Gary Matthews signed, and my poster went for more money than Gary Matthews did. And he was pissed. Like, how could this dinky little sports writer get more money for his poster than I got for mine? So the Sarge was quite a player and quite a personality.
And meanwhile, to humble you and bring you back down to earth, even though you are the most humble man I know. Remember that time you spoke at that auction and they introduced you as?
Yes, well, the whole story there is mom had me go to an auction and they were auctioning off one of my books. And the auctioneer and mom tells me that the people put it out online, like, come to this auction. Tim Kirkchin's going to show up. So after about a week online, they called mom and said, it's blowing up. We have 9 likes. It's blowing
The biggest post we've ever made.
Right. I'm not sure 9 likes in 1 week is technically blowing up. But yes, the auctioneers then makes a big point. He's going to auction off my book. And he says, and you know him, you see him all the time on TV. Mr. Tom Kirkchin is here today to auction. Tom. So that's in part where my stupid nickname comes from. And then the rest of the night, people were just coming up to me, pat me on the back and saying, hey, Tom, good to see you. I hope everything's all right. Like they didn't even know any better. Like I actually care. So that's the story behind Tom. All right, second one, love Tim Flannery. Tim Flannery played second base, was a really good infielder for the Padres, mid-'80s mostly, played in the '84 World Series. And his nickname was, Doug Rader nicknamed him Biceps because he had skinny arms for a baseball player. And you'll appreciate this. Tim Flannery is a real musician, Jeff. I mean, he could really play the guitar. He's a great singer. I have seen him perform. He's got, CDs out. And he's sung national anthem before a game in which he played or was in uniform. I mean, that's pretty hard to do. And that's Tim Flannery. And just a lesson for all our young guys. Skinny guy, not particularly skilled, but played a long time in the major leagues. And he told me once he retired when it was no longer more important that he lives than wins the baseball game. And in other words, he used to say, I had to go out to every game saying I would rather die than lose this game. And when he lost that feel, that's when he said, I got to go. How honest is that for him to recognize the only way I can play in this league is to care more than anyone else, try harder, and I would rather die than lose this game. When I lost that feel, I had to go. You appreciate that, Jeff?
That's a beautiful story. I mean, that's great lesson for our kids is you might not be the strongest, you might not be the fastest, you might not be the biggest, you might not be the best player on your team, but you can have the biggest heart, and that can go a long way.
Yes.
Guys like Tim Flannery are perfect examples.
Absolutely. And last one is Jim Sundberg, who I covered with the Rangers in the early 80s. I was a very young writer back then, Jeff, and I'm trying to learn the way. And Jim Sundberg was the star Gold Glove catcher for the Rangers. And I wouldn't say he welcomed me into the team, but he made it clear, hey, you're with us now, you're covering us. And he made me comfortable there, which I always appreciated. Buddy Bell did that more than anybody, but Jim Sundberg did too. And he's a Gold Glove catcher. But one day during batting practice, because he was a mischievous sort at the same time, he came up behind me. I didn't see any of this because my back was to him. And he took his hand and he swiped it and touched my hair on the back of my head. And I turned around and he's got a baseball bat, like he's swinging a baseball bat. And he goes, oh my God, sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't know you were standing there. So he pretended like that was a baseball bat that had brushed up against the back of my head when it was really just his hand. And I have this ridiculously scared look on my face, like, oh my God, I almost got killed. And everyone around me started to laugh because they all saw that the joke was on me. So
it's incredible, Dad. Yeah. And that's how they get the young sports writer. And I'm sure he's looking at you now on ESPN thinking, I remember that little guy.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. Those were the days, Jeff. Early 80s covering baseball. Loved it. All right. So that's it for the 3 cards in the bathroom. That's it for today's show, Jeff. But next week, we're going to wrap up all of this because we're going to have our Tuesday edition next week, which will have a wrap up of the World Series. And no matter what happens, it has been a fabulous postseason, great regular season, fabulous postseason. And I just think this crazy season, crazy postseason demands that we go 7 games in the World Series and something incredible is going to happen. You agree?
Yeah. Do you think this also demands that we do season 3 of Is This a Great Game or What next year?
Absolutely. We're doing it. And we've sent requests out there for some of our loyal listeners, like, what should we be doing instead of Ozzy to Oral? And we've gotten a lot of feedback, right?
Great suggestions.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Best player from each country, best player from each, United States,
Right.
Each state. We've got so many great suggestions.
So we're
going to rifle through these. And I think, Dad, it's going to be really fun this offseason to kind of restructure things and bring new things to the table for members of the family who listen every single day.
Right.
But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's focus on the World Series. I hope everybody has an amazing Halloween with your kiddos and your families. Trick or treat, put the kids to bed, then watch the World Series. It's a very special Game 6 tonight. And Dad, go enjoy dinner with your cousin and your family, and we'll see you at the ballpark.
Right. And for everyone out there, trick or treat McSorley, okay?
Thanks for listening. And as always, thanks for being a part of our family.